Welcome back to another episode of the Empower Grief Journey podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mamone, and I'm an acceptance coach who helps people heal from grief, loss, and trauma to discover their self acceptance and step into their personal power. This podcast is your dedicated space for healing, growth, and transformation. Each episode shares insightful and inspirational stories, along with practical tools and actionable insights that can help guide you along your healing journey. Today, I have a phenomenal guest with us today. I met him about a month and a half ago. He's an awesome guy who is connected to the spirit world, and I'm very, very excited for you guys to hear his story going through grief as well as his ability to connect with the other side of the world. His name is Daniel. He's been gifted with the ability to communicate with archangels and spirit. With this information, he guides and assists others to fulfill their spiritual path. His main goal is to teach people about their reason for existence and to help them become a better version of themselves. It is with this intention that he operates out of a spirit of love and compassion. Daniel has been able to help many people in finding their true path and with amazing results. He also takes extreme pride in his ability to answer all the unanswered questions that we may have. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce you guys. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me on today. It's awesome.
Likewise, and I'm loving the shirt, by the way. It's making me want to go
Uh,
to the beach.
yeah, I have a closet over here next to me that you can't see. I got a bunch of these Hawaiian type shirts in it. I picked one. I picked it. I pulled it out. But when I did, the first thing I always do is ask my spirit guides because they touch me on my face for yes and no answers. I said this one, and I got no. I was like, oh, okay. How about this one? Yes. So I put it on. There you go. That's simple.
Well, there we go. I
Yep.
like that.
They take well.
So, I'd love to start off today by giving you some space to tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself and your journey, by the way, because I do remember it was not a very easy journey to get connected with these spirits, and you really went through the ringer in a lot of ways to get a hold of this gift. And so, I'd love for you to share with us a little bit about your story.
Sure. Yeah, I've always seen spirit ever since I was 3 years old. And I'm at to the point now where I don't ever not see spirit ever. So it doesn't turn off for me. It doesn't go away. But I don't just see people. I see dogs, cats, horses, cows, fish, other beings from other worlds. I see everything. And that just never turns off. And I also see into what we would call heaven, but also what we would some people believe is hell, but it's not. But there are some horrible things going on there, and it's just a low energy realm, and I see into that mostly. Um, but I grew up in New Jersey, in a little town in New Jersey, right on the Delaware River, called National Park, and in that town there was a battlefield there with a Hessian fought. And there was a little hospital there, and this is there was all kinds of cannonballs stuck in the walls of the hospital. But yeah, but uh, my whole family was seeing spirit there because of this battlefield. Even some of the other neighbors around the area were also seeing spirit in their homes as well. So it just became normal after a while. But we were seeing so much. Like one time, my sister was getting ready for school in the morning, and my mom was helping her in the bathroom get her hair the way she wanted it. And when they looked in this full-length mirror we had on a door, there was another woman standing in the mirror with a colonial outfit on. We had, the ashtrays moving around and glasses moving around. And I remember one time my two brothers and I, my older two brothers, were downstairs watching TV, and my sister's record player turned on. But this is back in the '70s where they put a record on, in a little post, and you hit a switch, it drops down, and it plays the record. Needle comes across. But the strange part about it was switching records. So it would put a record on and take one off and put another one on. Um, so yeah, so my one brother sent me and my other brother upstairs to go turn it off. We ran up those steps real quick, and then we turned it off and ran back down the steps. And I kind of thought, oh, my brother, my oldest brother, he's going to protect me. But when I got back down there, he acted like nothing ever happened. Because again, so I was young. I was a lot younger than him. I was about 7 years younger than him. So, but we all just got used to it. And then the more that I grew up, the more it just became prevalent in my life. By the time I was in my 20s, I was playing in a rock band, and I had big hair, and I was wearing zebra striped spandex. I thought I looked cool, probably not so much. But I came home from a gig around 3, 4 in the morning, and I got all my stuff in the house. And when I went upstairs to go to bed, I laid down. And when I did, something laid down next to me. And this happened 3 or 4 times. Every time I'd look around, I'd lay head back down. I could feel the bed move and shake, and I felt my pillow press down. And then that fifth time, when I went to see whatever was there, whatever was there picked up the blanket that I had on top of me. It brought it up to the ceiling and it shook it above me, and then it dropped it on top of me. And then for 2 years after that, Chris, I slept on the couch downstairs because I was scared like crazy. But it just it progressed throughout my life. It just became more and more. I remember in my maybe I was like 27, 28, somewhere around that. I had a girlfriend, and we were in my room watching TV. And then out of the closet, the bedroom closet, this white thing came about maybe 2, 3 feet thick and about 4 feet long, came out of the closet and snaked its way across the room. And then when it got across the room, it just disappeared. And my girlfriend turned around and looked at me. She said, "Did you see that?" I said, "Yeah, I did. Let's get the heck out of here." So, but it was instances like that all the time. Um, but like I always tell people all the time that when your mom and dad feed you green beans when you're kids, and then 30 years later you love green beans. Why? Because you get used to it. And this was just a part of my regular life that I got used to. But it was when uh, I'd say, how old was I? I don't know. It got to a point where this was when I was down in Delaware, because we moved from New Jersey to Delaware when I was like 17. The only one who was actually seeing stuff at that point so often was me. My mom and dad weren't really seeing it anymore, weren't really experiencing it. My brothers and sisters, my sister a little bit, but not a lot. Except one instance where my brother was at home. He bought my mom and dad's house we had back in Jersey, and his daughter was working on a school project, and she went to get something to show her dad. And when she did, there was this big giant book there that she had. It fell off the table, and before it went down, almost hitting her foot, it stopped in midair. And my brother and her looked at it, and then she pulled her foot away, and when she did, then the book hit the floor. So, yeah, those types of things. Or there was one other one. I keep forgetting this one, but my brother went away on vacation to a campground, and he had some friends come over to the house, and they were banging on the door, expecting him to open the door because there was a big picture window out front, and they could look inside. And when they did, they saw people walking around the house. And then they called my brother on the phone, and when he answered, he said, "How come you're not coming to the door?" And my brother said, "Because we're not home. Nobody's home. We're on a camping trip." So whoever was walking around the house was whoever was walking around the house. But yeah, this stuff always took place for me into my 20s, 30s, 40s. And then it was right before I was turning 50 years old that my wife, she knew about this stuff. I would tell her about all the stories, but she went away to see her daughter in California for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks during that, I saw everything you could ever imagine in a scary movie happening in my house. I saw green and red mist coming out of the walls. I saw this cloud that would come out of the corner of the room by the ceiling, and one night it'd be red, the next night be yellow, the next night it'd be green or blue, and then it would the next night after that be red with black stripes, green with black stripes. I saw 7-foot skeletons walking around my house. There was this famed guy on the internet called the Hat Man. Uh, I saw him appear in my basement. When he appeared, I went down in my basement to get my cat, and he was sitting on the couch. And I looked at him. I said, "Come on, buddy, it's time to go upstairs." And he looked at me, and then he looked to his right. I looked to my left, and when I did, I saw a wall just appear in the middle of the floor. It was black, and then I saw a man walk out of it, and he had this like big hat on. I couldn't see his face, but I could see his features, and then this long coat on, and he walked across the floor. But for me, the strange part was that he didn't have any feet. Now, I mean, it's not strange enough that a man appears in the middle of the room and starts walking across the room, but he didn't have any feet. Perfect stride across the room. He got to the corner of the room, went through the wall, and then boom, he was gone. And then I turned back and I saw that wall just close up and was gone. And then my cat looked at me like, "What was that?" You know. So I went and got him and went back upstairs. But yeah, I had one where I was laying in bed and I saw a like a window open up above me. It was black. It just opened up, and I saw these two skeleton arms come out. Except the again strange part for me, they didn't have any hands, so it ended like right at the wrist, and then it pulled the body out, and it had this head with these bigger eyes, and it was looking around the room, scanning the room, and then it looked at me like it was surprised to see me, and then it moved from being in front of me to over top of me, and then behind me, and then it just disappeared. So, and then
Oh, wow.
my wife finally came home, and then she told me about her adventures, and I told her about my adventures, and she was a little freaked out to say, because she thought maybe because she was a nurse, she thought because I'm diabetic, she thought maybe my medications were causing me some type of diabetic psychosis. But within 3 days of her being home, she started witnessing some of the same things, and so we sought out help as much as we can. We went online. Um, some people said put salt around your room. I since known since that the only thing that will do is make your room salty. Uh, Water cannot. They said someone get some holy water. Water cannot be blessed by a human being. That's just a load of crap. So it's just water. Uh, yeah, we eventually had a paranormal group come to the house, and when they first showed up, they had their little van with them, and it had little insignia on the side of the van, and I just saw that, and I thought to myself, I don't want to be this kind of famous. You know, my neighbors are going to think they got, some crazy ghost house next to them or something, poltergeist or something. Unfortunately for them, they did, but I wasn't publicizing it. And then they came in. They had four people: a girl who took pictures, digital photos, one guy who just walked around. He was the leader. Another guy was asking a bunch of questions, and another guy was, and that guy set up all the electronical stuff. And then one guy walked around with a video camera, videotaping everything. They set up these little boxes that had little lights and wires on them sticking out of them. And I said, "What's that for?" And he said, "Oh, well, when spirit come around, they put off a static electricity." And he rubbed his hand on my couch and waved his hand above it. And when it did, the light came up and it turned on and made this bloop little noise. And I was like, "Oh, okay." But I mean, I've seen some ghost shows before, but I never saw all this equipment they use. They had something called an ovulus. It's like a spirit box where they would turn it on and voice would come through it. And so they had me do like little tests where they walked around the house with me and wanted me to go in certain rooms. And one of those was in my bedroom because they said, "Where do you have the most experience?" I said, "Well, there's no place in this house that I don't have the most experience, but we can just go in the bedroom first." And when I went through the doorway, every one of those little boxes just lit up. And then when they came through the doorway, nothing happened. They just didn't do anything. And then the camera guy said, "I feel drawn to go into the closet. Can we go in there? Because it's a big walk-in closet." And I said, "Sure." And we walked in. As soon as we walked in, he wasn't even in there 10 seconds. And he said, "I got to get out of here. I'm getting sick." So he goes back out in the bedroom. And I said, "You okay?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, Let's try again." We go back in, same thing. And then he went and I said, "Here, just sit on the bed." And he's like, "All right." And he looked up at me and said, "How come you're not getting sick?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "You guys are the experts. You're supposed to tell me this stuff." And then one of them the girl was taking pictures, and every time she took a picture of me by myself or with one of the other members of the team, I had 15 or 20 light orbs completely surrounding me. But when they took a picture of somebody else, there was nothing. It was always just with me. And then they wanted me to do this test where I went into the bedroom and they wanted me to pretend I was sleeping. And then they came in and they turned that spirit box on. And as soon as they turned it on, it started spitting out words. It said Wendy, Michael, Paul, Helen, unique, special, energy, uh, light. One time it said the word street, like a road. It said road, and when it did that, it just went after it said road. A car went past the house, and I was like, what's going on here? So, and then they just started asking questions, and they asked for 10 minutes straight. They timed it. And one of the questions they asked, they said, "Are you here to harm Daniel?" And then that computer voice came out and said, "No, we are not here to harm Daniel. We love Daniel. We love Daniel's light. Daniel is the light." When it said Daniel is the light, I just, I was flabbergasted. I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I was just, it was just freaking me out, but I was excited at the same time because we were so much was happening with them just being there. So they leave the room. I get up and I go out, and they're all huddled up. And I said to my wife, "What's going on?" She said, "I don't know. Something. They're talking about something." So they got done, and they turned around, and looked at me, and I said, I mean, I was excited at that point because other people were there, were witnessing what we go through every single day ever since this started. And so I said, "You got all that information? I mean, that was great, wasn't it?" And they said, "Yeah, Mr. Jackson, but there's an issue." And I said, "Why would there be an issue? It wasn't anything bad." He said, "Well, no." He said, "The issue is whenever we turn that box on, we can get it to spit out a couple words here and there." He said, "But it never says sentences. And it never says sentences for 10 minutes straight." He said, "We were having an intelligent conversation with whoever was there." And I said, "Okay, so what's wrong with that?" He said, "Yeah, we got to figure this all out because," he said, "but we'll come back in a couple weeks and do a big reveal." They never came back. Um, when I finally got a hold of him 6 weeks later, he said he couldn't get the team back together. He said once they got on my front lawn, they were so scared after that moment they quit and they didn't want to come back. They didn't want to come back to my house. I asked the team leader to come back to my house, and he wouldn't do it. He said he said we don't get that kind of information from one house. It takes 10 or 15 homes to get all what we got from your house. And I was like, okay, but so he wasn't helping me. And then I eventually found some mediums who could help me. I found 5 of them, and none of them knew each other, but every one of them told me the same story about me, which was that the spirit were coming to me uh, because they see my light, my soul. I look like a beacon of light to them. One of them in particular wanted me to come to her show because she said, "I want you to see how I do it." And I was like, okay, I didn't know what she meant by that. So my wife and I went to the show, and when we walked in the door, she was down there on the stage. She literally saw me come into the door and locked eyes with me and my wife and watched us as we went through the room and then sat down. And my wife said to me, "That was kind of creepy." I said, "Yeah, you're telling me." She said, "Did you tell her we're coming here?" I said, "I told her I'm coming, but I didn't tell her what show. I just bought the closest tickets for the venue." So she ends up telling everybody how she reads people, and I was like, "Oh, that's what this is all about." And she said, "Yeah, you didn't know that?" I said, "No, I didn't know what she meant by that." So she ended up reading 8 people. The second one was me. She would say she would get pictures in her mind, and they would show her things, and if it equates to anybody out in the audience, just raise your hand. So the second time she did that, a man came through and said his name was Robert, but he also goes by Bob, and he wore a suit and tie for work, but he wore flannel shirts and t-shirts at home. And I said, "Yeah, I think that's my dad, Bob, because his name was Robert, and he wore that stuff." And she said, "Yeah." And now he's showing me. He said he fell down, and that's the way he died. I said, "Yeah, that's my dad." I said, "My dad was down in the basement working on the home because all of us kids were coming over for Easter. And when he was down there, he got out of breath. He had emphysema, and he fell down. And he got up, and then he went up the stairs and fell down again. And when it did, it moved his brainstem, and then that was it. So he was in the hospital right after that. And then she said, "Who is Sarah?" And I said, "Oh, my niece." She said, "No, Sarah, who made the big decision." My dad knew that I would know who that is because my mom's name is Joan, but her middle name is Sarah. And I knew at that moment that this was real, what was going on. So we talked a little bit more, and then at the end of the show, I waited till everybody was kind of leaving, and I went down and introduced myself. And I said, "Hi, my name's Daniel Jackson." She said, "Oh, you're the guy I talked on the phone a couple weeks ago." I said, "Yeah, yeah." And then she looked at me like I was 7 years old, and she said, "Stay here, don't move. wait till everybody leaves. You and I need to talk. And I was like, oh man, like I'm in trouble or something. And then when everyone left, she said, so I understand you see a lot of spirit. And I said, yeah, it's like being in a room with 1,000 people, except nobody leaves and more just keep coming in. And it's still that way to this day. And she said, yeah, but they're coming to you. That's the reason why you see so many. She said, I know you can see them, but that's why you see so many because they're coming to you. I said, why would they come to me? She said, oh, Daniel, when you walked into the room, I saw you come in and I could see you go all the way over to your seat. I said, yeah, we thought that was kind of creepy. She said, yeah, I see you like spirits see you because I know spirits see any of us. They see your body, but they only see your body frame. They see a light inside of you. That's your soul. And some of us have a light that's brighter than others. I know that from what I see. And but she said, your light is brighter than anyone I've ever seen in my life. She said, when you came in and I closed my eyes, all I could see was you just look like a being of light. And she said, even when I opened my eyes, it was still so bright. I had a hard time. I had to squint because it was so bright. And I said, okay, well, what's that supposed to mean? She said, oh, they think that you're the light into heaven. And that's why they're coming to you all the time because they want you to help them. And I said, help them do what? And she said, oh, Daniel, she said, you're just an untrained medium. You need to get this figured out. I said, untrained medium? What are you talking about? She said, yeah, you're like me, but you have something more. And I was like, more than what? She said, well, I don't look like you, that's for sure. And I don't have as many spirit come to me as they come to you. But she told me what I needed to do at that point, and that was basically either I had to have a sit down talk with God, and I said, why would I do that? She said, because you have to figure out if you're going to move forward with this or not, and He needs to know. Because if you decide to let it go, and I said, let it go, she said, yeah. I said, oh, she said, oh, I know you don't want this to go away. I said, no, it's been a part of my life. I'm used to it now, but I don't know what the heck's going on now. She said, yeah, you got to get this figured out because that's why you have to have this talk with him. They'll find out if this is what you want to do, or you can push it away. I said, nah, I can't push it away. She goes, oh, I know you won't. She said, but you have to talk to God and let him know that that's what you want to do. So when we got home, my wife and I talked about it, and I said to my wife, I mean, she really puts things into perspective for me. I said to her, how do I just, how do I talk to God? And she said to me, how do you talk to him any other time? You just can. And he will know, he'll listen. So I went in the bedroom and I turned out the lights and I just said to him, God, I don't know what's going on here, but I'll do whatever you want me to do. I mean, if this is what you want me to do to help these spirits or these souls, or if you want me to help people, that's what I'll do. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I said, I'll go wherever you want me to go. And when I said go, when I was saying that, I was so nervous. I thought I was gonna, because I was committing to doing something. I didn't even know what it was I was doing. Uh, but but I just felt like if I tell him I'll do whatever he wants me to do, then he'll help me figure this out. So I had that talk, and then I walked out of the to the my to my wife and said, "Okay, I did it, cause, and we'll just see what happens." And then the next day, everything started to change. I mean, because I wasn't just seeing that red mist and green and red mist. I was seeing little skeleton heads, skulls floating around the room with red eyes and fangs. I mean, I was seeing some scary stuff. And then after I said I would do whatever he wanted me to do, eventually it started to go away. But I was at a point where I was glad that I was actually getting some help for this, um, because my wife and I thought, no, I mean, both of us together, we thought we were going crazy. We thought we were just, I mean, because I was not just seeing stuff, we were hearing stuff and seeing things move around the house. And when you see something like that, I mean, I see the air just kind of move, like if you're outside in the summertime and you see the little waves from heat coming off. Well, that was going on in my house, and I'd see a figure of that, like a figure of a person, just go through the house. Or I'd see one time I was sitting at my computer and my wife and I were getting ready to go out, and she walked past me. I was at the door on the computer, and she walked past me, and she went out of the room, and I went like this, and nobody was there. When I turned my head back around, my wife walked out the door, and I was like, "What is going on here?" I mean, it was just, it was so much, and it was happening all the time. But now since I have moved forward with this, and he brought help to me, none of that has changed. I still I see more now than I've ever seen ever, and I get more now, and I'm in communication with them all the time now. Uh, Regular spirit, and I call them regular because I call dogs and cats and people and horses and all that stuff just regular spirit. But that's general spirit to me. But I'm in communication with who we refer to as archangels, and I see them every single day. I don't ever not see them. I see them right now as I'm looking at you. I see these little petals of light next to me going on right here. And that's them in the daytime. And at nighttime, I see their true selves that they show them to me. Now, they didn't do that in the beginning because I would just see these blue and white beams of light coming up out of the floor and going through the ceiling. But now I see their true selves. And they are not men with wings and shields and swords by any means. They don't have that. Um, and when I see them, they're completely surrounding me. And in the beginning, when I wrote a book about it, and that at that time I saw 16 of them around me, and I knew all their names. As of to this point today, because I just had another one come in about 4 days ago, I know the names of 101 of them. And they touch me on my face for yes and no answers. When I get a yes, it goes across my face like that. It feels like blood dripping across my face and very quickly. And when I get a no, it feels like a tear running down my face, like blood dripping down there. They call it the blood, tears of blood. Um, has to do with Jesus. But I feel all kinds of little lines go across and swirls and stuff like that. And some of them are three or four of them at the same time, and sometimes it's just one individual one. But I don't ever not feel that anymore. It's always there. Some as I just said to you, it's always there. I got touched right here. So it's always there, no matter what thought is going through my mind, or I ask them questions all the time about me, and like if I want to go ride my bike today, should I go ride my bike today? No. Okay. If they tell me no, I go do something else. I listen, trust, and follow through with everything that they tell me to do so that I can be where I need to be in order to do this for other people and also to help myself so I can be right with myself. Um, that's a huge commitment. That's having someone else tell me what I'm going to do throughout my day and then sticking with it.
Daniel, you've given me a lot of questions over the last half an hour that we've been talking, and the first one I have for you, because I used to be a huge fan of watching ghost adventures and paranormal
Me too.
documentaries and things like that. And to be very honest, some of them I don't find as credible as other ones.
Me,
Sometimes there's evidence that shows these things are real. Sometimes they're kind of set up on TV. How did you? When you first started having these experiences on a big magnitude, things moving in your house, seeing shadow figures and things like that, I mean, that would honestly scare the crap out of most people, including myself. I'd be terrified if I saw something like that in my house. How did that become normalized for you?
Uh, well, because my whole family was seeing spirit when I was a kid. So I had two brothers and a sister, and my mom and dad. So we all were seeing them, but not that's just us in our house. We had a next door neighbor that was experiencing the same thing. She went to go upstairs in her house one time. When she did, there was a man standing at the top of the steps in a colonial outfit, and he had looked like a gun with him, and he had like blood dripping down his face. So we all the people who were living in that part of the neighborhood were all experiencing something. We used to go to that park, that place we used to call the monument, because there was a big stone monument there, and all these cannon and all that stuff and trenches, and we used to go there all the time just to see if we can catch a glimpse of a spirit because we'd hear about it in school all the time, but we never did. But you'd always hear somebody say something about it. So everybody would talk about it, and it just became normal after a while. It just again when you see it so much, but But then, it did pique my interest to watch a lot of the ghost shows later on those different stations. Um, I even have a friend now who I do a show up in Tucson. I'm doing it this weekend coming up. The Psychic Healing Fair in Tucson, where I go and do readings for people. And the guy who runs the show was actually asked to be on one of those ghost shows. But the only thing is he was picking up on this all these good energies that were there. They didn't want him to do that. They want him to only pick up on the bad ones. So it's fixed. So,
So
and that's because people need shock value because why? Because they get good ratings that way, and then they make a lot more money. It's sellable.
that's well, that's what my next question is going to be to you is that a lot of times when I watch certain shows, everybody loves talking about demons and monsters and
Yeah.
hell and all this, negative spirits
Oh,
moving
they talk about a
things.
place they've never been.
And I sometimes I sit there and go, well, if that's all you're showing, I mean, isn't there good spirits? Aren't there spirits that want to help you or guide you
Yes.
or show you something? And elaborate a little bit on that for me, just so I can have some context there.
Sure. Yeah, and there are. I see the worst of the worst. I've seen the real bad ones, and they've spoken to me. These are not something that you want to go. Oh, I'd like to see that, or that would be cool. You think it would be cool for 5 minutes. They don't go away. There's all these other mediums out there and stuff like that, so-called mediums that tell you, oh, I can clear your home out and stuff like that. How can you make spirit who can walk through walls? They're not actually walking through walls, they're just walking. How can you make them leave someplace if they don't want to? You have no control over that. You can put up a cross, but all a cross is a form of punishment. Or even the Bible has rape and murder in it, so that's not going to make something bad go away. Like I said, salt just makes your house salty, and the water cannot be blessed by people. So you can tell it to leave, but if it doesn't want to leave, it won't. It can actually walk out of the room while you're telling it to leave, and you go, "Oh, it's gone. I got away." You leave the house, boom, comes right back in. That people don't understand that, but yeah, there are very bad ones, but there are very good ones as well. When I see into those different places, especially when I see into this low energy realm, not everything I see there is bad. I see deer walking around. I see horses walking around. When I see horses and deer, I see them grazing all the time, and you think, "Oh, why would they be grazing? Because they're dead." Because they're not dead. No one's dead. Your body's gone, but you are still you. And why would they be grazing? Because that's what they did before they passed away. They're just doing the same thing as well as people are. They talk amongst each other. I see them kissing, making out all the time. Uh, but it's not really any different than here, other than you no longer have a body anymore. And you can go in between realms if you want to. Now, the ones who are in this lower energy, what would people would call earthbound, are stationary here in this kind of earthbound realm, but not because they are in another place. And that other place is dark. I see it all the time. I don't ever really ever not see that thing. Um, it's just a very dark place, and the only light that's there is from the energies that are there. Everything, people, dogs, cats, horses, cows, fish, everything, other beings, everything. So, and there's gazillions of them. I don't just see one in a day. When I tune into that place, I see hundreds of thousands of them. So, whenever I see them all sticking together because they're trying to stay away from the bad ones because the bad ones need negative energy. And if you're in that place, you have negative energy because, or you felt lost or something like that. When you feel lost, you get that sense of fear within you. So those negative ones want to come around and try to steal that from you. That's why they come into this realm here because they want to steal our negative energy. Why? Because we're human buffets of negative energy all the time. But we do have positive energies. There's some good people who are in that low energy realm who just chose not to go into what we will call heaven because what happens is when you die, you will stand up out of your body. You'll take a step to the left, you'll look to the right, and a light will turn on for you. That's your portal of light for you to go in, your own personal one. And if you choose not to go in because you feel as though you stand up out of your body, you get perfect memories of this lifetime, plus all the other memories from all the other lifetimes, you're going to know that if you walk into the light and go home to heaven, there's a possibility you might have to come back again. And maybe you don't want to. Some of them don't want to. There's all they won't, but the only way you will know if you get to stay is if you actually go through. And the only reason you would stay is because you fulfill your purpose as a human being and as your soul is meant to do here. And if you don't get that done, that's why you come back. It's not about lessons. It's about why you didn't do what you were meant to do because you made some bad choices in your life. I mean, God doesn't punish us. We punish ourselves by the choices that we make. And when you make too many bad choices, and not do what you're meant to do, you're going to come back and do it all over again until you get it right. That's what it's about. And but positive energies will talk to you just as well as negative energies one, but you have to make up your mind which one you're going to listen to. And not
So
everybody
Daniel,
the same one.
you you know, it's funny that you're bringing this up because I had just finished reading a book last week called Many Lives, Many Masters. And it's a book about a psychologist who has a patient that comes to him, a woman dealing with massive anxiety and panic attacks. And what he ends up doing is doing hypnosis regression with therapy with this woman. And
Cool.
she vividly, in very big details, gives many examples of all the lives she's lived. And I think she lived about 86 lives, if I remember right, in the book. And sometimes she was a woman, sometimes she was a man, sometimes
Yeah.
she was on a ship, sometimes she was prepping bodies during the Egyptian period that had passed on. I wanted to get your thoughts since you can connect with that side of the realm. Do we live multiple lives? Is reincarnation a real thing? And going back to that, the big thing in that book talked about us learning our lessons because if we don't, we end up coming back here to learn them again and repeating that process.
You will do that because you're just not good at learning, but everyone's going to be learning lessons. It's the purpose that you have a choice in doing. And that choice being is our purpose is we're here to help each other just for the sake of helping, not because you can, but because you should. In a way, you're going to do something for someone physically that they cannot do for themselves, or you're helping them to figure it out. And that's a choice. But everything you do in your life, if I pick up this glasses case and I put it down, that's a lesson. If I pick it up and drop it, ooh, well, the next thing I do is how do I learn it? I'll grip it a little bit tighter and then I won't drop it. But, you know, or I won't grip it at all and I'll keep dropping it. Again, you're going to learn lessons no matter what. But whether or not you go through life and fulfill your purpose or do what we call acts of kindness for the reason of just because, if you're not doing that because you think your life is all about you and me, and taking 1,000 selfies and posting it on Facebook all day long is important, and you don't care about anybody else or anything, that's what brings you back over and over again. But as far as the book, um, when she said 86 lives, that was a little bit of embellishment. I know that because I know the average time between somebody coming here is between 26 and 29 times. I have done a reading for a lady who had been here 43 times, but that lady was really screwing it up. But the average is between 26 and 29 times. But yes, we do come back over and over again, and sometimes, yeah, you will come back as a man and a woman because you're not going to learn lessons the same body over and over again. You're not going to learn enough from just living in one body all the time. But yeah, you are here to learn lessons, but fulfill that purpose. And again, the most important thing is if keep coming back. I mean, when people get into past lives and all that stuff, let me put it this way for past lives. If your previous life to this one was so good, because everybody wants to do past life regression, if your previous life was so good, you would have gotten it done. You wouldn't have had to come back and do it all over again. So what's that mean? It means what you do now is what's important, not what you did 100 years ago. And equating everything that you do in your life now to what you did 100 years ago, well, 100 years ago, they didn't have computers. They didn't have running water so much. They didn't have refrigerators and stuff like that. I mean, it was a rare thing. You go back 150 years, none of that stuff was around. But you think somehow that that's going to equate what you're doing here in this life? Not even close. Not even close. But again, it all comes down to choice and what you feel is best for you. And when I say feel, I mean learning to listen, trust, and follow through with what your internal compass, your soul is trying to tell you to do, and then actually doing what it wants you to do because it's trying to guide you through this world. But if you don't want to listen, trust, and follow through, you're not going to get where you need to be, and you'll come back again. I don't make the rules, but I explain them.
So now when we go through this process of living this life and learning these lessons and we do pass on from this
Yeah.
life that we're in, um, do we have a choice when we do get to heaven? And I guess the stereotype I'm leaning towards is that, a lot of people talk about Judgment Day and they talk about how negative it's going to be and how awful it's going to be. And I'm trying to figure out the conjecture of what we've decided here versus what you hear in the realm of what that looks like for us when we pass on.
No, there's no judgment. I mean, God, we judge ourselves 1,000 times a day. Why does God need to do it once more? He doesn't. What He wants us to do is learn. Like any parent wants our children to do, learn. We are all His children. We are all the children of God, not just Jesus. And He wants us to come here and learn. And if we're not good at learning, what do they do if you're in school and you keep failing all your classes? They put you back in the same grade again. Well, that's what's going on here. He sees that you're not learning very well. You're going to keep staying until you do. It's that simple. But yeah, and no one when you leave your body here and you go on, um, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to look at that light and not go in and stay here earthbound, or you're going to go and cross over into the light. But I'm not telling you that you're going to go to heaven right away because no one does. Because what they will do is it's not judgment, but they will when you get there, you will go to like a holding place where they will go over your life and let you know what you did and did not do by your choices. And they will show you everything that you did do and didn't do. But if you get to a point where you get there and they go, well, look, you did this, Chris, and you did all this, and you did all this, and there's some other things that you did that weren't so great. We'll show you those, but you did more of what you were supposed to do, what we wanted you to do. Then you would get to go home and stay home in regular heaven. But if you don't get to do that, you stay in that holding place until it's time for you to come back again. And there's a waiting period of that. If you die under the age of 30 years old in human years, you will come back 8 years later. And if you die over the age of 30 years old, you will come back 80 years later, and all for one reason. So you're not recognized. That's it. Pretty simple. He made everything very simple. People complicate everything.
Well, that's what I've been curious because there's so much as I've dove as I've dove into spirituality in a sense, there's a lot of opinion, a lot of conjecture, a lot of ideologies that float around, and a lot of us, many of us, don't really know what that's going to be. One of my big questions I have for you that I have come across is near-death experiences, and I've heard an array of stories that have ranged everywhere from
Sure.
I've seen Jesus and I've seen the light at the end of the tunnel. I've also heard people say, I've seen nothing. I've seen darkness. It was nothing that happened. I just woke up from it. What are your thoughts on that based on your experience?
Well, I actually talked to one woman who's been researching near death experiences for like 20 years. And I asked her a couple of questions because I am who I am. And when I asked her the questions, even she couldn't answer them, which was kind of funny. Most NDE people don't even know why they had the NDE. They don't know why. Like if a guy had a car accident and then he goes and sees something. He doesn't even know why he had the car accident in the first place. They don't even talk about that. Just say, I did this, came around a turn, got in a car accident, next thing you know, I'm coming out of my body. And but they never say why. They never say why. And and she said, well, why do you think it is? I said, because if God wants to talk to you or he wants to send one of his messengers in order to talk to you about something, and you are going a million miles an hour and you don't have time to talk to him, well, he's going to stop you so you will. And he will create that instance of you getting into a car accident so he could slow you down and give you a talking to. That's what he's doing. And people just they don't even see that. They don't even get that. Um, and I said that to a lady one time, she was on my show I have called Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson, and uh, and she said, "Oh well, they brought me back. I had to come back." And I said, "Well, yeah, you had to come back this time, but you've come back many times." She goes, "Oh, I don't believe that." I said, "How do you think they were able to bring you back this time, but you think they wouldn't be able to bring you back into another body another time. And she said, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I said, right, because they do. You don't just come to this world one time, you know. So, but she didn't experience full death to know that because she was just taught something that she needed to see in order to realize what's really going on in this world and share that with people. Uh, when the near death experience, everybody walking around in this world, we're all near death because it could happen at any moment. There's no set amount of time. I mean, if there was a set amount of time, then why is everybody getting into car accidents and get cancer and falling off the top of a building and get hit by cars and catching a cold and dying or something? Because everybody dies. There's no one dies too soon, no one dies too young, no one dies tragically, no one dies unexpectedly, and no one dies untimely. Everybody just dies. They just do. But the world wants to put a blame on it. Oh, his tragic life, his tragic life. I saw them on TV and I saw them out in the world and stuff like that. Look, I had a great time. But when he dies, it's tragic all of a sudden. No, you just die. But yeah, they just want to. They want the people want to turn everything around on everything so they can make it a news story, newsworthy story. So they'll have you pay attention more to that instead of paying attention to your own life and the people around you. Because as I always explain it, there's two rules in this world. As long as you follow the rules and comprehend the rules, you'll pay attention to your life and love your life even more, as well as love everyone else who is around you. And rule number one is people die every day. And rule number two is you can't change rule number one. When it's your time to go, it just is. And if we would pay attention to that and learn the true meaning of life and death, we wouldn't take this life so much for granted. But yeah, he's not going to judge us. He wants us to learn. What he wants us to do is the most important part, which is to love and to take care of each other in this world. And we just don't do a very good job of that. If we were doing a good job, you know, we wouldn't have rockets pointed at each other all day long. And we do. And that's the big part here. We're not getting it right. But even as individuals can change things in this world because if enough of us do it together, then eventually everyone else will catch on. And that has to start with us as an individual. But we just focus on too much other crap in this world that we think is important, having 6 cars and 7 houses and 10 boats and all those types of things. We base our whole value system on two things: rocks and paper. You've heard of it. It's called gold and dollar bills. But the only value in that money is when it's in our hands. So what does that mean? The true value in this world is us, because those things don't have any value unless we place value on it. There might be a car that's worth $150,000 to you, and if that's your goal, but to me, it just looks like a car with 2 doors and 4 wheels to me. So it all depends on what you feel the value is. But people need to get back to where their true value is in this world, which is themselves, and understand that we don't have to be alone in this world because we're not alone in this world. I mean, if there wasn't, if we weren't meant to do this all together, there wouldn't be 7.5 billion of us. There will only be one. But that's not the case. We're on this in this world to do this together and take care of each other and look out for each other instead of always trying to get in each other's pockets all the time.
So I have a powerful, deep question to ask you right now.
Sure.
On the planet, we have free choice. We have the freedom to choose as we please, do what
Yep.
we want to do. You can obviously make really bad choices. You can make really great choices.
Correct.
How does that play into the effect of, um, God putting us here on the planet for to learn lessons and do certain things on our time here? Because something I pulled out of the book that I thought was interesting, when this lady kept talking about her stories, the psychiatrist didn't, I don't think, fully picked up on it, but she kept on saying, "This was my role here. This was my purpose here. This is what I was supposed to do." How do you comprehend that we have free choice, but at the same time, we almost in a way before we come here, we're told that we have a set of things to accomplish, but we forget
Correct.
that part when we come here.
Well,
Uh,
we forget that part because you wake up in a baby body. That's why you wake up. We don't come here as adults or even We come into a world in a baby body going, "What?" And our mom and dad's going, "I'm your mom and dad." And you're going, "I don't know who the heck you are, but okay." And then they raise you and they teach you the ways of the world. And most of the stuff that they teach you in the ways of the world, even our own history, is a lie. They teach us all these lies. They teach us how to have pain and anger and sorrow and grief and guilt and all these other things that you didn't wake up in this world with. I mean, if you take two children at the age of 2 years old of every race, creed, and color, religion, whatever, and stick them all one big room, and then take two of them and turn them around and say, "Okay, kids, you two kids, I want you to point to me. Who do you hate in this room?" They're going to look at you like you're crazy because they haven't learned how to do it, but they will. But we but God is not going to punish you for something he gave you, which is free will to make choices, because the choices you're going to make, Chris, are the ones that you need to make for you. But they're not the ones I need to make for me. So we all have free will. So why would he punish you to a horrible place for something he gave you so that you could get through your life? He doesn't do that. People do that. And the only reason people do that is because they want to have power and control over you. That's why. Don't let him do it. But uh, but yeah, he gives us choices for everything in this world, so that we can make the right choices that are going to fit us in our situation throughout this world. Until the time you wake up in this world in a baby body, until you go, until you don't go anymore, and that's what it's all about. But we just don't. Again, we get a lot of distractions in this world that occupy us and our time, to keep us knowing how much control and power we actually have over ourselves instead of everyone else. They who tell you, they tell you one day to wear this type of shirt, or they tell you the next day to wear this type of shoe. Well, you know what they need to do? They need to shut the heck up. But what we need to do is we need to stop listening. That's what the problem is. And we get overpowered by all the things that they try to force down our throat every day long. And a lot of us listen. And then that's what we get caught up in this mess that we're in, that because we've gotten to a point where they want us to segregate ourselves from ourselves. They don't want us to like each other in this world. They want us to hate each other. And that's what makes the world go around. But I think love makes the world go around better. I mean, if you ask me, and
That's
that's what God wants us to do, and that's what Jesus wants us to do. But we just can't seem to get it right.
Well, I think that's one of the most powerful lessons I learned after losing my son, Caden, to stillbirth. I don't know how it came over me or why, but I did feel in that moment I had a lot of very angry things going on. I had lost a job. I'd been dealing with narcissistic family. I was dealing with being bullied at my job that I had. I just had so much negativity happening. And when I lost my son, somehow all that stuff didn't matter anymore. All of it didn't matter. And what did matter to me though was love and kindness. Somehow that overtook and overpowered those other emotions very strongly. And
And
it's to
that was something you needed to learn.
well, it was very powerful because I've never felt love that strong before. And
Right.
something that does bother me, like you brought up today, is that in today's world, particularly in the last 5 years, we try to segregate and divide each other on
Yes.
everything known to man. If you don't think this way, if you're this color skin or this background, and if you're this sexual orientation. And I sat there one day, catching myself getting upset about that a little bit. And I started reflecting back on my life and I started saying, my best friend in high school was black. I mean, he grew up in a different part of the neighborhood than I did, but he was my friend. We rode bikes, we did everything together. We did
Right.
drafting together, and he's my best guy I could trust. And then I thought about my realtor that sold me my house 6 years ago. He was gay. I got invited out on the sailboat, go racing with him. I never thought about those things about orientation or color. I never thought about that. What I did see
Yep.
though was that this is a person that has love just like I do, and we get along well despite any differences we have,
Right.
regardless. And to your point that I'm building off of, I hope I'm doing a good job of articulating this. When we go from that place of love and we stop looking at those things that divide us and we start seeing that I'm a human, you're a human, we are walking
Correct.
this experience together.
Correct.
I think there's just so much that we can learn and come together with in that moment with that perspective.
Right, because we all have a different perception of the world. We all look at the world differently. When I was a kid, my mom used to say, "Why can't you be like your brother?" I'd say, "Because I don't look at the world the same way my brother does. I don't react to the things that I react to the same way my brother would. So I have to be me. So I can't be him. If you want another him, then go ahead and create one of those. But that's not going to happen for me." So yeah, we all have a different perspective on this world, and we can all learn a lot from each other in the way that we look at the world and look at each other. But we just don't want to take the time to do that. There was a a commercial on TV that kind of programmed us into thinking a certain way that I absolutely love because it's an absolute truth. But you could go to Staples and get yourself an easy button. You click on it, go bing,
Oh yeah.
and life is going to be easy. When has life ever been easy? I mean, when does anyone's prayers ever get answered? And if they don't get answered, why not? Because the answer to that is prayer is not asking for more than you're supposed to have. Prayer is for giving thanks for what you do have. You know, he's not going to answer something for you because he wants you to figure it out. I mean, there's that other term that says, God bless you. Well, he did. He put you here. But he wants us to figure out the rest and he wants us to do the best job we can while at the same time, hopefully trying to help others to do the same thing. But if we're not doing that, what are you doing? I mean, because if life was meant to be easy, what would be the point of living? If you were given everything in your lifetime, you wouldn't appreciate the things that you do have. And that's what we overlook all the time. We don't look at we can be very blessed in this world without having a lot of things or vice versa. But we take everything for granted all the time, and we just don't focus on anyone else, you know, I mean, winning the lottery is not about just winning the lottery and getting $1,000,000 and spending it on yourself. Because most people who do that go broke, and they go into the hole because they don't know how to handle that kind of money. Winning it is, you know, you spending some on yourself, but going out and helping some other people at the same time who would never have that kind of money because they just can't get it. But, the lottery isn't always just a form of money, you know? I have a lottery of friends. I have a lottery of help. I have a lottery of knowledge from my friends that I hang around with all the time. And I see that as worth more than any money amount in the world. So I just do the best I can to go out and collect that as well as give them when I do readings for people, I get spiritual guidance for them, and so we pay each other back and forth in ways that are more than any money can ever be found in a bank. I mean, even when I go up and do this show, the last time I was there, I think we read like 8 or 10 people, something like that, uh, for money. The other 4 people that I read were people who just worked at the show. I don't charge them anything. I mean, there was one girl who just walked in. She said, I saw this place and I just kind of made a U turn and came back in. And I said, you here to get a reading? She said, no, I really can't afford it. I don't have any money to do that. I said, okay, well, just sit down here with me and I'll just kind of whisper to you because I'm going to read you. And I read her for free. We sat there and talked for an hour. Why? Because I can. Because she needed it. Because she saw something by going past this place that made her turn around. And what made her turn around? Her soul guided her there. And her soul guided her because everyone else was just like, looking at her like, oh, maybe she'll be my next customer. I was just like, so are you interested in this? And then we had to talk about it. And then I picked up on the fact that she actually had an ability. And when I said that, she's like, yeah, I had all this stuff going on. And then I told her what to do with it after that. Now she still sends me emails all the time, letting me know what's taking place in her life. Again, when you can do it for the reason of just because, why not? Why can't we just do that sometimes? I mean, I get it. People have to make a living in this life, and so do I. But sometimes you just gotta. In order for anything in this world, you gotta give a little to get a little. And I got a good feeling, a little bit of a good feeling inside of me, knowing that I got to help someone who would have never been able to get that help I know from anybody else in that room because they would have charged her for it, not me.
Yeah, I think that, I think to your point, what you were talking about, because I've had very few of these moments in my life, but they've always stood
Mhm.
out like a whole different thing, like a beam of light sitting in the room right now.
Sure.
Um, I've come across people that I really feel like got taken over by God or spirit or something because they're complete total strangers that I have never met before. And I end up having deep, powerful spiritual conversations with
Sure.
them. And I don't always feel like it's the person I'm talking to, but it's like I see it and I hear it in their eyes and what they say. And I always wonder if God does use people in that circumstance to teach you
Yeah.
lessons or
Yeah.
send you messages you need to hear.
Absolutely. I talked to someone today, and when I told her what I did, she was like, "Oh, is that what you do?" And then she started telling me something. She goes, "You know what? I've never told that to anybody." She goes, I said, well, I said, I can tell you why that's going on. And when I told her, she was like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. I said, yeah, and this is why. And she was like, oh my God, we need to talk about more about this in the future. I said, absolutely will. Because, yeah, if I can help you or if I can educate you in a way where you don't have to be fearful of what I do anymore, then I did a good job. I did what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing what he wants me to do, which is help everybody in this world, let them know why they're here and what their purpose is, get them to listen, trust, and follow through, and get them through their lives so they can stop being so spiritually lazy and spiritually gullible about things and get through their lives so they can get through this point of their existence and hopefully get it done so they can go home and stay home. That's my mission to do. And if I can do that every day, I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, I think that's an absolute beautiful mission to have because there's so many people I see today that are hurting. We're all hurting in a lot of ways right now,
Yeah.
big time. And I see so much room for us to come together collectively and help each other through these things. And
Everybody's
um,
going through something, you know? I mean, I
I
don't care
mean,
who you are, everybody I don't care how much money you have in the world and how big and flashy your car is and how many gold chains you have on around your neck. Everybody's got something they're going through. Everybody.
yeah, I did my first medium reading last month with somebody who was on my podcast, and I had never done a medium reading before, and I didn't know what to expect, but I went into it with, I'm gonna have an open mind. I'm not gonna have any premonition, any kind of I think this or feel that. I'm just gonna see what comes through. And I was really impressed being open like that because I did receive some very powerful messages from my grandfather and my son that passed away.
Yeah.
Two people that meant the world to me.
And that's something that some mediums do. That's not what I do per se. I mean, I did a I did a show one guy with this guy named Rick Yee, and he it was a show about mental health and stuff. And something, I mean, did come through for him, but and I hit it right on the nail. I mean, he was actually we were talking about it the other day because I've been going live on TikTok and trying to do some things to help people to let them know what's real and what's not real and stuff like that. And he came up and he said, and he was telling everybody in the audience, he said, yeah, he said, I had this guy on my show. He's the most powerful medium I've ever met. And he picked up on something because what I picked up on, he said, "You see anything around me?" And I took a look. I said, yeah. I said, "There's this man here, um, and he says he's related to you, and his name was Richard. And Richard says that he's very proud of you. And I'm being told that this guy is your grandfather, and he was with you in a sort of previous life, like you're not the person you are now as you were then." I said, but it was still in this life. I said, but he tells you that he's very proud of you all the time. Well, Rick starts freaking crying on this right on the thing. He started trying to wipe his tears away, and then I also picked up on his spirit animal too, and I saw a very dark wolf with him, and I said the wolf stands next to you most of the time, but he also stands in front of you, and what that means for him is the wolf is like a light switch. I said if Rick ever encounters a problem, you know, he turns the light switch on, the wolf stands in front of him, and he takes care of it, you know. And then when he's done, it just turns back off, and he goes back to being like a regular guy. And so he's telling everybody in the audience about this, and he's like, yeah, he picked up on all that stuff, and he said, and he's been at this podcast thing for like 5 or 6 years, and he said he's only had one other medium who picked up on the wolf thing, but the medium didn't pick up on his grandfather. And he told me at the end that he said, yeah, my grandfather's name is Richard. And even my father never told me he was proud of me. Only my grandfather told me he was proud of me. He said, that's when I knew what you were saying was real. Now, I got that for him, but do I get that kind of wow moment for everybody? No, because what's going to come through for each individual person is different for that person. Um, but uh, but yeah, I do pick up on all kinds of things for people. But again, I'm not the person who's there trying to get a hold of your mom and dad or your brother and sister. What I get answers from archangels. I let people ask me questions, or sometimes I'll pick up on something, but I'll let them ask me questions and I get answers for it. And then I explain the answers to them. And once I start explaining the answers to them, they go, "Yeah, well, that's what's going on." I go, "Right, because I'm telling you this is what's taking place." And so, but yeah, but again, I'm not one who's just going to start telling you like what your dad's favorite color was when your dad died. I mean, but in the real sense of things, I mean, he's gone. What meaning does his favorite color have anymore? I mean, it may be something you may go, oh, okay, well, this is, but that's the problem with this. People they want to have proof of everything, and when they say that they have to have proof of everything, then I do my little uh, I make a little analogy with that, and I always tell people, like I'm going to tell you, you take your two hands and you put your hands together like this, and you make a cup. Go ahead, make the cup. Make the cup. Show me the cup. Cup your two hands together. Okay, I like you're trying to hold water, but I don't want you to hold water. I want you to look inside that cup and show me where you see fear. Do you see fear inside your cup? Or do you see pain and anger and sorrow and grief? Do you see any of that stuff? Nope,
No.
you don't see any of that stuff at all, but you sure do make a hell of a lot of decisions based on things you can't see all day long. But you want some other kind of proof because that's the only way you're going to believe it. Well, no. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and believe and have trust and faith within yourself that you can do anything in this world. But you have a lot of things that go on in your life and you make decisions based on your perception of how everything else is going on in the world and also what you feel inside of you. And that will help guide you the most in this world before you start outsourcing to everybody else. Look into yourself first for those answers because all answers can come from within, but you got to take the time in order to find them.
Daniel, I think that is just sound, beautiful advice and a great place for us to wrap up the podcast.
Okay.
I couldn't be more proud for to hear somebody say that because I think that in today's world with social media and the internet and the news and everything else going on, it's so easy to lose ourselves and lose our
Yeah.
trust within ourselves. And so many people are always looking externally for validation and reasons and knowledge and proof, as you said,
Right.
when really we have all that within ourselves. But it's taking the time to get there and actually give ourselves permission to go within, seek that out from ourselves before we go out in the world. I thank you so much for sharing that.
I appreciate it, and that's what I do. I had to find the trust within myself to allow myself to receive these answers that I get from spirit in order to give those answers to other people, and that took a long time too. I didn't trust myself at that in that stage in my life either with a lot of things, but this is something that I needed to do for myself, and if I can do it, then anybody can learn to trust themselves, but they have to really want to do it and take the time to do it, and it does take practice because we're not always good at everything right away, but if you take the time and effort to do it, you can find some real answers that are within you instead of having to pay somebody else for them.
I think that's beautifully said, Daniel. And as we wrap up the podcast today, I usually ask my guests a couple questions at the end. One of them is,
Rapid
if
fire.
you know somebody going through grief or somebody who feels stuck in grief, what's one thing you would share with them to help them navigate that journey just a little bit easier?
I'd say that the same thing that I kind of based my book off of, that, if you're having trouble in your life and you just can't figure it out, well, go out and find your people. There's somebody else out there who can help you. Now, my book was based on, me getting all these, seeing all these spirit and getting all these messages and stuff like that. And I said, go out and find your people. But this is for anybody in this world. I mean, there is something that someone else out there has gone through or is going through at the same time that you are. But you got to be a little bit more vocal about yourself and be able to tell other people, trust them enough so that you know that they can help you. So, I mean, if we weren't meant to do this, there wouldn't be 7.5 billion of us. There's someone else out there who has gone through what you are going through, or has been through it, or is going through it. And maybe the two of you or the 10 of you together can go out and find some answers together instead of just one person looking for everything and again, driving yourself crazy over that fact. So, you're not alone in this world. No one is ever alone in this world. We have a gazillion people around us to find answers, or you can start trying to find answers from within. But again, the only way you're going to do that is by exploration and going out and try to find those answers. Don't let yourself feel like you're alone, and don't let yourself think that you can't go out and get some help. We can all go out and get some help, but we just have to want to do it.
That's beautifully said. And Daniel, I wanted to give you some time here as well. If people are listening to this episode and want to connect with you, A, where can they find you? And B, tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure. My book is called Daniel Jackson: The New Beginning: My Awakening as a Spirit Medium. I got a copy right there. There's a man walking into a bright white light. That's me. You can find it on Amazon. You can go to. I also have a web page called spiritmediumdaniel.com where people book readings with me. But my book, you can find it on there. There's a link on there. But my book is basically about how everything happened to me and for me in order to become what I am, what I've always been. I just wasn't aware of the fact that that's what I was, but I'm very aware now. Yeah, I sell it for $10 online. I'm not trying to make $1 million, but I sure would like to help 1 million people with it as much as I can, because at the end, there's chapter 12. It's called The Basics. And these are messages that were brought to me from archangels that I wrote down. It was funny when I submitted the book to the editor, everything that I wrote was a mess. You know, my wife didn't even want to read it because she said, because all I wrote is these big giant paragraphs and my everything was just horrible. When I sent the messages to the woman for her to edit, she said, I don't have to edit any of this. Everything is perfect. I said, that's because it didn't come from me. It came from a perfect place. I just wrote it as they told it to me. But yeah, so they can find it on Amazon. They can find me at spiritmediumdaniel.com, one long word, spiritmediumdaniel.com. And you can book a reading with me there. I do a couple of different types. I do one where I do an actual reading, and because you ask questions. And then the second kind is like people just want to talk to me about spirit and ask questions about spirit. I'll sit and talk to you for about 2 hours. I love talking about it. And and then the other one is for people who have an ability, and they're not sure where to go and what to do with it next. And I will guide them in order to do that. When you get a reading with me, a reading is for 2 hours. It's $150. If it goes over 2 hours, I'm still not going to charge any more than $150. That's what I charge people. So I've done readings that lasted 4 or 5 hours, and it's more important for me to get them the information that they need so they can get through their life the best way they can. They can watch my show. I have a show called Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson. Me, that's how I started. Everybody loves my name too because it reminds me of that guy from Stargate. Uh, but uh, yeah, I have that, and that's on a streaming spiritual network called New Reality TV. I'm on Instagram at spirit.medium.daniel, and I'm also now on TikTok doing live shows. I put videos out, but I'm doing live shows where I'm talking to people about what is real in the spiritual realm and spirit itself, and within spirituality, and what's not real. Because there's a lot of stuff that people put out there that's just not real. And then also I'm also like I said on TikTok doing that, and they can find me at Spirit Medium Daniel 1, or just look for Spirit Medium Daniel. So yeah, I'm kind of everywhere. But even if they wanted to look me up on YouTube to see me, not just with your show here, but if they go on YouTube and put in Spirit Medium Daniel and then put in my last name Jackson, Spirit Medium Daniel Jackson, uh, you'll see I'm all over the place. I've been on at this point over 300 other podcasts, and I'm just trying to get my word out there. I'm trying to get a message out there that that we all live on the same planet. No one's going anywhere anytime soon, so we better start to get along with each other before we annihilate each other. Because if we keep going in the direction we are, that's what's going to happen. And he doesn't want that for us. He wants us to learn to take care of each other. So I'm always trying to push that. I will push it everywhere and anywhere that I can. Although, as of right now, your show is the last one I'm doing for a while. I haven't booked any more shows because I have my own show to take care of, and now I'm doing all these live shows on TikTok. I'm actually going to do one tonight later. But yeah, I'm always trying to just bring the word out there as much as I can to everyone that I can, and hopefully people will pick up on it. Do they have to reference me for everything? No, as long as they get the message, that's what the most important thing is.
Well, Daniel, I just want to say it's been a true pleasure today getting to have you on the podcast and sharing your incredible story. It's one that most of us walking the planet have not had the experience of anything close to where you've gone through, but I really appreciate you sharing that. And I want to also thank the spirits around you and the archangels that are with you for sharing their knowledge and wisdom through you to help other people on this planet. Because I do believe after the spiritual journey I've been on and the things I've experienced, I do think there is more to life than we see today on the planet. There is much more to us than what we give credit to. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing your experience with us.
I appreciate it, Chris. I appreciate you having me on me. It was an absolute pleasure. And it was good talking to you last time. It was good talking to you this time as well.
And I want to thank all of our listeners for joining Daniel Jackson and I on today's episode of the Empower Grief Journey podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody you know who could benefit from Daniel's story. For more episodes that are designed to empower you and support you during your grief journey, visit empowergriefjourney.com and subscribe to this podcast. You can find us on Apple and Spotify. The Empower Grief Journey is all about honoring your journey, embracing your emotions, and finding strength in your own time. I want you to know you're never alone on this journey, and together we can navigate grief with courage and compassion. Until next time, be kind to yourself and take your grief journey one step at a time.